Chapter 1. Static and Dust. Out here on the Texas stretch, they call the Devil's Highway. The silence doesn't scream. It crackles through your CB radio, asking if you remember things you prayed to God. You've forgotten. They changed the number on the maps years ago. Scrubbed clean, the 666s like washing blood off concrete. But the road remembers. And it makes damn sure you remember too. My name's Ray Carter. And my 18-wheeler, Serenity. Yeah, I appreciate the irony now. Is currently hurtling through a West Texas night so vast and empty, it feels like the sky might just swallow you whole if you stare up too long. Heat still radiates off the cracked asphalt ribbon unfurling before my headlights. Hours after a sun that tried its best to bake the world into dust. The air conditioner wheezes, fighting a losing battle, stirring the cab's stale perfume of diesel, dust, old coffee, and the cheap pine tree deodorizer swinging uselessly from the mirror. Outside, the landscape is skeletal. Mesas, like sleeping giants against a bruised twilight sky, bleeding into star-dusted infinity. The occasional skeletal silhouette of an oil derrick pumping rhythmically in the distance, like some prehistoric insect feeding. This run wasn't my first choice. Nobody runs the forgotten guts of old 666 by choice anymore. But the payout was too good to refuse. A lifeline I couldn't afford to ignore. Lisa's medical bills are piling up faster than West Texas thunderheads. And her smile in the photo taped to my dash, the real one, before the illness dimmed it, is the only fuel additive that keeps me pushing through double shifts and runs like this. Still, every time the tires drone over another expansion joint, another memory tries to surface. Twisting metal, the shriek of brakes that came too late, rain on broken glass. I push it down. That was another life, another road, but roads have long memories out here. And they have rules, not the ones printed in the company manual or posted at way stations. The other ones, the ones you learn from hollow-eyed old-timers at 3 a.m. in truck stops. That smell of desperation and rancid grease. I got mine from a man named Jedediah, back in Amarillo. Skin like cracked leather, eyes that held the permanent reflection of oncoming headlights. He leaned across the sticky Formica table, voice a dry rasp. "Run 666 tonight, son," he'd asked, stirring his coffee with a bent spoon. I'd nodded. He took a slow sip. "All right. 3 things. You listen close now. This ain't bullshit." He laid them out. Simple, chilling, absolute. 1. That CB. He gestured towards my dash with his chin. Sometimes laid out here, the static clears right up. Voice comes through asking if you remember it. Sounds friendly. Maybe familiar. Don't matter. The second you hear, "Do you remember me?" You unplug that damn thing. Pull the power cord right out. Don't talk to it. Don't even think at it too hard. 2. Voices. His gaze sharpened. Might be radio, might be CB, might just be in the air. If something calls you by your full name, Raymond Joseph Carter, you keep driving. Don't answer. Don't react. Not unless it says the word Amarillo first. That's the safe word. Only time you know it's all right. Anything else calling your full name, it ain't friendly. Amarillo. Simple enough to remember. Strange enough not to come up by accident. And 3. Jedediah had leaned closer then, his voice dropping. "Mirrors, keep checking them. Always. But if you see headlights behind you, gain in fast. And they look exactly like your own rig, reflected back at you. Same light pattern, same height, sitting just right. You pull over, hard shoulder, engine off or on, don't matter. But you sit there, exactly 6 minutes by your clock. Don't get out. Don't look back too hard. Just wait. 6 minutes. Then you drive. It'll be gone." I'd wanted to laugh it off. Highway hypnosis. Trucker folklore fueled by caffeine and loneliness. But Jedediah wasn't laughing. And my own ghosts, the ones from that rainy highway years ago, whispered that sometimes the impossible does crawl out of the wreckage. So now, hours deep into the Texas night, the rules hum in the back of my mind like bad wiring. The CB next to me hisses, a constant stream of low static, the ocean sound of utter isolation. Every so often, the static seems to coalesce, almost forming a word, a whisper, before dissolving again. Mini hook. Just imagination. Or the line tuning. Heat haze shimmers over the road ahead, even now, distorting the distant, lonely lights of a refinery flare stack, making it waver like something struggling to maintain form. My eyelids feel heavy. I crank up the radio, hoping for music, but only find faint, drifting mariachi music fading in and out, battling waves of static, the signal bleeding across the border from Mexico, maybe, or from somewhere else entirely. I check my mirrors. Empty road behind me, stretching back into swallowing darkness. Good. But the air in the cab feels thick, expectant. The scent of pine from the deodorizer seems suddenly cloying. Wrong. My hand hovers over the CB mic. Muscle memory wanting to reach out. Break the loneliness. Find another driver running this cursed stretch. But Jedediah's warning stays my hand. Don't talk to it. The static crackles louder for a moment. Sharp, insistent. Then settles back into its low hiss, waiting. The long dark ribbon of Route 666 stretches on before me, disappearing into the vast, indifferent heart of the Texas night, and I drive on, feeling like a fly trapped in amber, pushing deeper into the silence, listening to the static, the rules a cold weight in my gut. The shift is long, and I get the feeling the real passengers haven't even hailed me yet. The cab felt smaller after reading Jedediah's rules again. The vast Texas darkness outside pressing against the glass. Vast and indifferent, miles unspuled under Serenity's tires, marked only by the rhythmic thump-thump over cracked asphalt and the hypnotic drone of the diesel engine. Fatigue gnawed at the edges of my awareness, a familiar enemy on these long solo runs. It made the heat haze shimmer in stranger ways, made the distant lights of oil fields pulse like dying stars. It made the ever-present hiss of the CB radio sound, sometimes disturbingly like whispers, just beneath the threshold of hearing. I tried tuning the regular radio, searching for music, news, anything to break the monotony, to push back the silence and the thoughts of Lisa's medical chart. All I found were ghost signals, snatches of Spanish language sermons fading in and out, crackling fragments of country music decades old, the lonely howl of M static. The airwaves felt as empty and haunted as the landscape. Maybe that's why I left the CB plugged in, despite Rule 1 nagging at me. Habit mostly. And the ingrained trucker's instinct not to be completely cut off, even out here where sane drivers rarely tread anymore. The static was a kind of white noise, usually. It happened around 2 a.m., somewhere between the ghost town of Glen Rio and the unmarked turnoff for what locals called Rattlesnake Mesa. The static on the CB sharpened, cut through with a sudden startling clarity. Breaker 19. Eastbound, a voice said. Smooth, easy, startlingly clear, like he was sitting in the passenger seat. Anyone out there burning diesel on the Devil's Stretch tonight? My hand froze on the wheel. CB chatter wasn't unusual, but this clear, out here, highly unlikely. Still, the voice was just normal. Maybe a local rancher with a powerful setup, just looking for someone to chew the fat with. The voice continued amiably. Road gets mighty lonely. Name's Earl. You got a handle, driver. I hesitated. Standard procedure was to respond, but Jedediah's warning. I kept silent, gripping the wheel tighter. A soft chuckle came through the speaker, intimate, unsettling. Quiet type, huh? I get it. Me too, sometimes. Lots of time to think out here. A pause. Reminds me of that run we did back in, what was it, 9? Hauling produce out of California. You were greener then. Ice water trickled down my spine. He knew I was eastbound. Okay, maybe lucky guess or saw my lights, but that detail. I had run produce out of Cali back then, greener than grass. Coincidence? Or was my fatigue making me paranoid? Yeah. The voice called Earl continued. Conversational, friendly, but with an undertone I couldn't quite place. Knowing. We sure did raise some hell at that truck stop outside Flagstaff, didn't we? Good times. He laughed again. A sound that didn't quite reach my ears correctly. Slightly distorted. Been too long, Ray. Seems like forever. My first name. Casual. Familiar. And wrong. I hadn't given a handle. Miss me? Earl asked softly. Then the words that turned the blood in my veins to slush. Do you remember me, Ray? Rule 1. The warning screamed in my head. My hand shot out, yanking the coiled power cord from the back of the CB unit. With such force, I nearly tore it from the dash. The radio died instantly. Silence slumped back into the cab, broken only by the engine's drone and the frantic pounding of my own heart. I stared at the dead CB, then at the empty passenger seat, then into the rearview mirror, at the empty black ribbon of road behind me. My breath came in ragged gasps. Who the hell was Earl? I didn't know any Earl who sounded like that. But the voice, it had tickled something. A half-buried memory. Unsettlingly familiar, yet unplaceable. And the details. Flagstaff. Hauling produce. How? Had he just been guessing? Throwing out common trucker experiences? Or had he somehow known? Just follow the damn rules. Jedediah's voice echoed. I'd followed Rule 1. But the cab felt colder now. The isolation pressed harder. The feeling of being watched intensified. The static wasn't just on the radio. It felt like it was inside my head now. As I drove on, trying to regulate my breathing, my cell phone lying silent on the passenger seat where service was a bad joke, suddenly lit up. A text message notification. Sender. Unknown number. Heart pounding. I risked a glance. One sentence. We remember you. I threw the phone onto the passenger floor mat like it was burning. A text. Out here. From an unknown number. Right after the CB incident. Impossible. Had to be a delayed message from earlier. A glitch in the network finding a stray signal. It had to be. But the timing. The wording. We remember you. Plural. My hands were slick with sweat on the wheel. Keep driving. Just focus on the road. The yellow line sliding hypnotically under the headlights. Ignore the feeling of unseen eyes watching from the roadside scrub. Ignore the way the static hiss from the main truck radio now seemed to ebb and flow, almost like breathing. Ignore the chill that had nothing to do with the struggling AC. This stretch of 666 cut through some of the most desolate country yet. Flat, featureless plains under a vast, uncaring sky, broken only by the occasional pump jack, nodding silently in the dark like a praying mantis made of iron, or the crumbling ruins of a homestead swallowed by dust and time. They called this section the empty mile locally, though it stretched for closer to 50. Legends said people vanished out here. Cars found abandoned, occupants gone without a trace. Or sometimes the cars themselves vanished. I flicked on the AM radio, desperate for any human voice, even a crackling preacher or late-night talk show host, ranting about conspiracies. Static mostly then, faint but clear, a signal locked in, country music, whining pedal steel. Better than silence. Better than the whispers I thought I heard in the static. I was maybe halfway across the empty mile when the music abruptly cut out. Not faded, just stopped, replaced by a low hum. Then a clear, resonant voice, slightly distorted by distance or interference, but undeniably present, overriding the station signal. Raymond Joseph Carter, my full name. The sound echoed slightly, seeming to come from all of the cab speakers at once. My blood turned to ice. Rule 2. Don't respond unless it says the safe word. Amarillo. You carry a heavy load, Raymond Joseph Carter. The voice continued. Calm, conversational, yet utterly devoid of human warmth. It sounded ancient, patient, more than just freight. Debts, regrets, little Lisa's picture on your dash. It knew about Lisa. Panic, cold, and absolute seized me. Every instinct screamed to shout back, demand who it was, how it knew. Protectiveness surged. Don't you talk about her. She waits for you. The voice murmured, softer now, laced with something that might have been artificial pity. Needs those medicines. Needs her daddy home safe. All you have to do is listen, Raymond Joseph Carter. Listen to the terms. Terms? Terms. What terms? Was this a threat? An offer? My mind raced. Was this connected to the debt collectors? Had they hired someone to spook me? No, that didn't feel right. This felt older, stranger. Don't respond. Wait for Amarillo. The rule hammered against my panic. I gripped the wheel, knuckles white, jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. I stared straight ahead at the ribbon of road illuminated by my headlights, refusing to acknowledge the voice, refusing to give it purchase. Ignoring me won't make the bills disappear, Raymond, the voice said, its tone hardening slightly. Ignoring me won't make Lisa better. Ignoring me won't erase the memory of the rain, the headlights, the twisting metal on I-40. My breath hitched. The accident, the one I never spoke of, the one that started this downward spiral. How could it possibly know that? I slammed my hand on the radio's power button. Nothing happened. The voice continued, uninterrupted, amplified slightly by my frantic action. Just listen, Raymond Joseph Carter. A small detour, a small service. Your debts cleared. Lisa provided for. Everything reconciled. It paused. Or you can keep driving. Reconcile. Keep running. Wait for the next call. Wait for the headlights in the mirror. Your choice. Just listen. It wasn't yelling. It wasn't threatening overtly. But the implication hung heavy in the cab. Colder than the AC. Heavier than my cargo. It knew everything. My name, my daughter, my debt, my deepest shame. And it wanted something. I didn't speak, didn't react, just drove, foot heavy on the accelerator, eyes burning holes in the darkness ahead. Inside, I was screaming. The voice sighed, a sound like wind through dry bones, laced with static. So be it. But the road is long, Raymond, and the night is full of echoes. Then, as suddenly as it started, it cut off. The radio hissed static for a moment. Then the faint country music station faded back in, incongruous and meaningless. I drove for another hour in absolute, terrified silence, ignoring the phone buzzing insistently on the floor where I'd thrown it. When I finally risked looking at it, there was one new text. Unknown number. Your choice. I pulled into the next derelict pull-off, gravel crunching under the tires, and cut the engine. My hands were shaking too badly to drive safely anymore. I needed caffeine, needed to think, needed to check my cargo. A paranoid thought. But was it the heavy load the voice mentioned? I got out, stretching cramped limbs, the vast silent Texas plain stretching out around me, under a billion cold stars. As I walked towards the back of the trailer, flashlight beam cutting through the dark, I noticed something glinting on the ground near my rear tires. I bent down. It was a small, tarnished silver locket, lying open in the dust. Chapter 4. Mirror Image. The locket felt cold and heavy in my palm. Definitely wasn't mine. Where the hell had it come from? Dropped by the entity? Left as a marker? A warning? Inside, the tarnished silver frames were empty. Just dark, waiting spaces. I snapped it shut. The click loud in the stillness and shoved it into my pocket. Another piece of unsettling evidence I didn't understand. Checking the cargo seals revealed nothing amiss. They were intact. Whatever haunted this road wasn't interested in my freight. It was interested in me. Back in the cab, fueled by lukewarm coffee from my thermos and a handful of caffeine pills that only sharpened the edges of my paranoia, I forced myself to keep driving. Dawn was still hours away. The encounters were escalating. First the CB, then the text, then the truck radio using my full name, my deepest vulnerabilities. What was next? I became obsessed with my mirrors. Every check. Side mirrors, rear view. The convex spotter mirrors was fraught with tension. Headlights approaching? Normal spacing? Or too close to? Familiar. Trucks passed occasionally, rolling west, their running lights briefly illuminating my cab, making me jump every time. Each one was scrutinized. Make, model, light configuration. Before I could relax, just slightly, the landscape rolled on, monotonous and hypnotic. Mezzas gave way to pump jacks, then to miles of nothing but scrub and heat-hazed horizon. Fatigue was a heavy blanket, threatening to smother me. I slapped my face, cranked non-existent music on the dead radio bands, chewed caffeine gum until my jaw ached. Keep awake, keep aware. It was on a long, straight, utterly empty stretch, the moon hidden behind thin clouds, that I saw them. Headlights, appearing suddenly in my rearview mirror, far back, but definitely there. My heart kicked into high gear. Normal trucker, or? I watched intently. They kept pace, maintaining a steady distance for miles. I sped up slightly. They matched me. I slowed down. They matched me. Coincidence? Someone pacing me for safety? Unlikely out here. My gut clenched. They drew closer, slowly, deliberately. Close enough now that the glare filled my mirror. Close enough for me to see the distinct pattern of the lights through the dazzle. High beams, fog lights, the amber clearance markers on top of the cab. My breath caught. They were identical. An exact mirror image of Serenity's own configuration, burning back at me from the darkness. Rule 3. If you see headlights in your mirror matching your own rig exactly, pull over and wait exactly 6 minutes before driving again. Panic flared, hot and suffocating. This was it. The final rule triggered. No ambiguity, no room for doubt. I signaled numbly, even though there was no one else for miles, and steered Serenity onto the cracked asphalt shoulder, gravel popping under the tires. I put the truck in park, left the engine idling, the sound of fragile defense against the sudden immense silence outside. In the rearview mirror, the phantom rig pulled smoothly onto the shoulder behind me, maybe 100 yards back, its identical headlights cutting through the night, pinning my cab in their glare. It just sat there, waiting. My eyes locked onto the digital clock on my dash. 3:17 a.m. 6 minutes. It felt like a lifetime. Every second stretched thin and taut. I stared into the mirror, at the blinding lights. Was there a driver in that other cab? A silhouette? Or just darkness? I couldn't tell. The glare was too intense. 1 minute. The silence outside was absolute. No wind, no coyotes, nothing. Just the low rumble of my own engine. 2 minutes. Did the lights behind me flicker slightly? Or was that my tired eyes? The air in the cab felt heavy, charged, like the moments before the entity spoke over the radio. 3 minutes. I thought I heard something. Faint music, that same haunting fiddle tune from the other story. Damn it. Focus. No, it wasn't fiddle. It sounded like wind chimes, faint, discordant, metallic notes drifting on the still air, coming from outside. 4 minutes. The phantom rig's lights dimmed slightly, then flared brighter. Testing me? Or was its power source fluctuating? I gripped the wheel, knuckles white. Don't get out. Don't look back. Just wait. 5 minutes. The chiming sound faded. The silence returned, heavier than before. The headlights behind me remained steady, unwavering, burning into my mirror. My past accident flashed in my mind. The glare of oncoming lights. The screech of metal. Was this punishment? A replay? 6 minutes. 3:23 a.m. exactly. The timer was up. My hand hovered over the gear shift. Jedediah said wait 6 minutes, then drive. He didn't say wait for it to leave first. Taking a shaky breath, I put the truck in gear. Checked the mirror one last time. The identical headlights still blazed behind me. My stomach plummeted. It hadn't worked. It was still there. But the rule was drive after 6 minutes. Heart pounding. I eased Serenity back onto the highway, tires crunching on the gravel. I accelerated slowly, deliberately, not wanting to provoke whatever was behind me. Eyes glued to the rearview mirror. The moment my trailer fully cleared the shoulder and straightened out on the highway, the headlights behind me vanished, not turned off, not drove away. 1 second they were burning in my mirror, the next gone. Nothing but empty road stretching back into the oppressive Texas darkness. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. My body slumping against the seat, drenched in cold sweat. Rule 3 worked. The waiting game. The arbitrary 6 minutes. It had satisfied whatever protocol this road demanded. But the relief was instantly replaced by a chilling thought. 3 rules. 3 tests. I'd encountered them all now. Survived them all. What happened next? What happened when you passed the tests on the Devil's Highway? My eyes scanned the dark horizon ahead, and then I saw it. Far in the distance where the road seemed to meet the dark line of a mesa, a faint light glowed. Not headlights, not a town, a single, flickering point of light, like an old gas lantern, where no light should be. Near Sentinel Butte, according to the worn map folded in my glove box. The place the online forums whispered about. The place Jedediah had warned me, almost as an afterthought, to never detour towards, no matter how tired or lost you feel. The place the voice on the radio, the one wearing Earl's folksy charm, then my own deepest fears, might have been trying to guide me towards all along. My hands tightened on the wheel. Forget the detour. Forget the detour. Something was waiting for me there. Answers, maybe. Or just the end of the road. I flicked my turn signal on, a useless gesture in the empty darkness, and turned Serenity's wheel towards the flickering light. Turning Serenity off the cracked pavement of Route 666 onto the barely there track leading towards Sentinel Butte felt like crossing a threshold. The air itself seemed to change, growing heavier, charged with a static that prickled my skin, even through the cab's metal shell. The smooth drone of the engine deepened as the tires bit into loose gravel and sand, the truck groaning in protest. Ahead, maybe 5 miles off, the single point of flickering lantern light pulsed faintly in the oppressive darkness, a lone, malevolent star fallen to earth. Jedediah's warning echoed, never detour towards it, no matter how tired or lost you feel. But I wasn't lost anymore. I wasn't just reacting to the rules, surviving the tests. I was driving towards the source, towards Earl, or whatever wore his voice, towards the architect of the phantom rig, towards the heart of this highway's particular brand of hell. The fear was still there, cold and coiling in my gut, but it was overlaid now with a grim, reckless determination. Answers. Or oblivion. Either felt better than being perpetually haunted on this endless stretch of road. The track deteriorated further, forcing me to slow down, navigating washouts and jagged rocks by the high beam's glare. The landscape here was harsher, dominated by the dark, looming shape of Sentinel Butte itself, a flat-topped mesa that rose abruptly from the desert floor like a colossal stone altar. The air smelled of creosote bush, hot dust, and something else, an acrid undertone, like old smoke or burnt wiring. Then the phenomena returned, not sequentially, but layered, chaotic, as if angered by my deliberate approach. The CB, which I'd left unplugged, suddenly crackled from the disconnected speaker, a burst of multi-voice static that resolved into that chillingly familiar phrase. "Remember me. Remember. Remember," before cutting out. The truck radio, still tuned to faint static, flared with sound. Not my mother's voice this time, but my daughter's, Lisa's, weak but clear. "Daddy, where are you? It's dark." My heart seized. Rule 2. But there was no Amarillo. I slammed my fist on the power button, but like before, it had no effect. "Daddy, come home," it pleaded before dissolving into screeching feedback that made me wince. And in my mirrors, headlights, identical to mine, flickering into existence directly behind me, far too close, bathing the cab in their blinding glare. Rule 3. But there was nowhere to pull over on this narrow, crumbling track. No time to wait 6 minutes. "Not this time," I snarled, gripping the wheel. "I'm not playing by your rules anymore." The truck shuddered as if hit by a crosswind, though the air outside was unnaturally still. The lights on my dash flickered, dimmed, the engine sputtered, threatening to die. Electrical drain, just like during the Raymond Joseph Carter incident. Ahead, the lantern light grew brighter, closer. I could make out the source now. The skeletal, burned-out shell of an old gas station and trading post nestled at the very base of Sentinel Butte. The single lantern hung impossibly from a rusted signpost whose letters had long ago corroded into illegibility. This was the place. As I slowed, pulling into the cracked, weed-choked concrete lot in front of the ruins, the phantom headlights behind me vanished instantly. The radio fell silent. The CB went dead again. An unnatural quiet descended, broken only by my truck's rough idle and the faint rhythmic creak of the lantern swinging in a non-existent breeze. The ruins were black against the slightly less black sky. Charred timbers, collapsed roof, empty window frames like vacant eye sockets. The smell of old smoke and ozone was strong here. I killed my engine, plunging the immediate area into near silence, amplifying the eerie creak of the lantern. "Took you long enough, Raymond Joseph Carter," the voice rasped. Not from the radio this time. It came from the ruins, echoing slightly, carrying on the still air. Earl's voice, but stripped of any false friendliness, now rough and ancient, and filled with a dry malice. "Who are you?" I shouted back through my open window. Hand resting near the tire iron I kept wedged beside my seat. A low chuckle echoed from the darkness. "Names change, road remains. We are the echo, the static, the memory the dust won't forget. We are the ones you don't remember, but who remember you. Remember the rain, the screech, the silence after I passed accident. It was using it again. Leave me alone. Leave." The voice mocked. "You came to us, Raymond, drawn by regret. You think you're different from the others who took this detour. They all came seeking something. Absolution, oblivion, answers." The lantern light pulsed, casting long, dancing shadows. "We offer resolution." Then, from the highway I'd turned off, I heard it, the faint but growing roar of a diesel engine. Headlights appeared in my side mirror, approaching fast, but these weren't normal headlights. They pulsed with that same sickly green glow I'd seen in that other nightmare. No, focus. They pulsed with an internal light, and the configuration identical to Serenity's. The Phantom rig. It hadn't vanished. It had circled around. It came barreling down the track towards the gas station, not slowing, its deadlights fixed on me. Simultaneously, the voice from the ruins intensified. Your final fare, Raymond. Time for reconciliation. Trapped. The entity in the ruins. The Phantom rig blocking my escape back to the highway. This was the endgame. Adrenaline surged cold and clear. Screw answers. Screw absolution. Survival. I slammed the ignition. Serenity roared back to life. Ramming the gear shift into drive, I stomped on the accelerator, not towards the highway, but aiming Serenity's massive grill guard directly at the source, directly at the rusted signpost holding the single, pulsing lantern in front of the burned-out station. The Phantom rig, caught off guard by my sudden charge towards the ruins, swerved, its horn blaring a sound like tortured metal. Fool! The voice from the ruins shrieked as I bore down on the signpost. My headlights illuminated the base of the post. Not just rusted metal, but thick, dark, vein-like tendrils snaking down from it, disappearing into cracks in the concrete, pulsing faintly in time with the lantern. The source wasn't just the light. It was anchored here. I hit the air horn, a deafening blast shattering the night, aimed directly at the ruins, then braced for impact. Serenity slammed into the rusted signpost with a sickening crunch of metal. The post buckled, shrieked, then tore free from its base, taking chunks of concrete with it. The lantern shattered on the ground, extinguishing instantly. The moment the light died, the voice from the ruins cut off mid-shriek, replaced by a deafening wave of pure static that blasted through the cab, even with the CB unplugged. The Phantom rig, which had been turning to intercept me, flickered violently like a bad projection, its form dissolving, its horn dying in a distorted groan, before vanishing completely. An intense wave of cold washed over the area, followed by quiet. Not the heavy, unnatural silence of Rule 3, but a clean, empty quiet. The oppressive presence, the feeling of being watched, listened to, gone. The static cut off. The static cut off. My radio crackled back to life with faint music. I sat there, engine idling rough, cab filled with the smell of my own fear sweat and hot metal, staring at the wreckage, the fallen signpost, a shattered lantern, the dark ruins silent now under the indifferent stars. I had hit it. I had disrupted the anchor. I had fought back with 10 tons of steel and desperation. And I was still alive. The cost? Serenity's front end was crumpled, radiator hissing steam. I wasn't driving anywhere fast, but I was alive. And the road, for the first time since Amarillo, felt just empty, quiet, normal. Maybe, just maybe, I'd actually broken something more than just a signpost. The silence that followed the crash and the dissipation of the Phantom rig was vast, profound, but clean. Gone was the oppressive weight, the feeling of being listened to by the static, the malevolent intelligence radiating from the ruins. Now, it was just the West Texas wind sighing through the shattered windows of the burned-out gas station, the hiss of steam from Serenity's crumpled hood, the frantic drum of my own heart slowly returning to something resembling a normal rhythm. Adrenaline drained away like water through cracked earth, leaving behind a landscape of pain. My head throbbed where it had hit the steering wheel. My shoulder screamed from the impact. Bruises were already blooming along my ribs, but I was alive, intact. I hadn't been consumed, hadn't vanished, hadn't reconciled. Dawn was a rumor in the east, painting the underside of the clouds a bruised purple. In the growing gray light, the devastation was clearer. Serenity's front end was a mangled wreck, grill smashed, radiator leaking coolant onto the dusty ground, with a pathetic sizzle. The rusted signpost lay twisted like scrap metal. The spot where the lantern shattered was just broken glass and scorched earth. The ruins themselves looked smaller, somehow. Just a burned-out shell, stripped of its power, its focal point destroyed. I killed the hissing engine and climbed stiffly out of the cab, the vast silence of the pre-dawn desert pressing in. Testing my limbs, assessing the damage, both mine and the truck's. The radiator was shot, front axle likely bent. I wasn't driving Serenity anywhere soon. Cell phone, predictably, showed no service. The CB was still unplugged, its cord dangling uselessly, stranded, miles from the main highway, miles from anywhere, at the foot of Sentinel Butte, the place Jedediah warned against. Working by the weak beam of my emergency flashlight, I did what truckers do. Popped the hood, assessed the damage more closely, used emergency tape and sealant on the biggest radiator hoses, knowing it was a long shot. Checked fluids, tried to ignore the throbbing in my shoulder. As I worked, the sun finally crested the horizon, flooding the desolate landscape with harsh, unforgiving light. The ruins looked pathetic now, just charred wood and crumbling stone. No sign of the entity, no lingering cold, no oppressive presence, just wreckage. Had I really done it? Had ramming that signpost, shattering the lantern, actually broken the connection, disrupted the anchor? Or was it just dormant, waiting for the next fool to take the detour? In my pocket, my fingers brushed against the tarnished silver locket I'd found earlier. I pulled it out, looked at it in the morning light. Just an old, empty locket, worthless, on impulse. I walked over to the base of the fallen signpost, dug a shallow hole in the dusty earth with the heel of my boot, dropped the locket in, and kicked the dirt back over it, leaving it here, part of the wreckage, part of the memory this cursed place could keep. It took hours, rationing water from my emergency stash, working under the already baking sun, but I managed to patch the radiator enough to hold some fluid. Serenity groaned in protest when I turned the key, but the engine caught, settling into a rough, uneven idle, leaking, listing, but alive. Limping back towards the main highway at barely 20 miles per hour felt like another kind of eternity. Every sound made me jump, every shadow seemed to stretch, but the CB remained silent. The radio played only static or faint border stations. No voices called my name. No phantom headlights appeared in my mirrors. The intense, targeted malevolence was gone. The road felt just like a road again. Empty, desolate, dangerous in a purely mundane way. By midday, I reached a dusty two-pump gas station and diner, back on a numbered highway, the kind of place where the coffee is always burned. And the clock on the wall stopped sometime during the Carter administration. I filled the radiator with water, checked the tires, then called the company dispatcher from the payphone. Cell still useless. Unit 73, Carter, I said, my voice hoarse. It's major debris field off old 666 near Sentinel Butte. Bad washout. Truck's operational but needs significant front-end repair. Requesting nearest authorized service center. Debris, near the butt. The dispatcher's voice held a sudden note of caution I hadn't heard before. You all right, driver? Driver? Yeah, I lied. Just shook up. Truck took the brunt. All right? Rourke's truck repair in Van Horn is closest. Take it easy getting there. And Carter? Yeah? Stay off the old route next time? Company policy? Officially now? Too unstable. Unstable. Policy. Right. I hung up, a cold smile touching my lips. I hadn't just imagined it. And maybe, just maybe, my little demolition derby had finally put that particular stretch officially out of bounds. One less trap on the Devil's Highway. Small victory, maybe. But it was something. Months later, Serenity was repaired. Scars hidden under new chrome and paint. But I felt the phantom aches in her frame, just like I felt them in my own shoulder. The company officially rerouted all contracted long hauls away from the decommissioned 666 segments, citing infrastructure instability. The Sentinel Butte incident was logged as vehicle damage due to unmapped terrain hazard. Case closed. Officially. I was still driving. Had to. Lisa's treatments weren't cheap, and trucking was the only life I knew. But something had changed. I still drove nights, still crossed vast, lonely stretches of America, but I avoided the deep deserts of West Texas if I could. And my relationship with the static had fundamentally shifted. I mostly kept the CB unplugged now. Didn't need it. Didn't want to hear what might be listening on Channel 19. The radio stayed on low volume, usually tuned to music, but I found myself constantly listening underneath the signal, alert for any flicker, any voice that didn't belong. My mirrors were checked constantly, not with frantic paranoia anymore, but with a calm, assessing vigilance. Headlights were just headlights now, mostly. The fear hadn't vanished entirely. It was a permanent co-pilot, sitting silently beside me in the passenger seat. But it wasn't the crippling terror from before. It was the wary respect of a survivor. I had faced the source, the anchor point near Sentinel Butte, and I had walked, well, lived, away. I hadn't defeated the entity that haunted Route 666. I knew it was too old, too vast for that. But I had disrupted its strongest manifestation. I had thrown a wrench in its works, and I had learned. The real change was a sense of grim responsibility. It crystallized one rainy pre-dawn morning at a sprawling truck stop outside Amarillo, the place whose name was supposed to be my shield. I was nursing coffee in a booth, waiting for my next load dispatch when I overheard them. Two young drivers, fresh faces, bragging about shaving hours off their next run to Denver. Cut straight across on old 491. The first one said eagerly, "Maps say it's rough, but it knocks off maybe 3 hours compared to looping down to I-40, the new number for the Devil's Highway. Specifically the stretch heading north, past Sentinel Butte. Heard that road's kinda spooky," the second driver said, a little nervously. "Stories about radios going weird. Phantom trucks." That's just bullshit," the first one scoffed. "Old-timer legends to keep rookies off the shortcut. Faster miles mean bigger paychecks, worth a little static." I sat there, coffee growing cold, listening to their naive confidence. I could just walk away. Not my problem. Follow Sal's implied advice. Just drive. Mind your own business. But then I thought of the voice calling my name. Using Lisa. Use. I thought of the icy dread when those headlights matched mine. I thought of the shattered lantern, the silence after the crash. I thought of Jedediah's warning, given freely to a stranger. I stood up, walked over to their booth. They looked up surprised. "Running 491? I asked quietly, keeping my voice low. The first kid nodded, a little defensively. "Yeah, gonna make good time." I looked him straight in the eye. "Maybe," I said. "Roads rougher than the maps show, and the radio signals get real weird out there, especially after midnight. Interferes with truck electronics sometimes." I paused, letting it sink in. Friend of mine ran it last year. Swore his CB started talking nonsense, asking him questions. Spooked him bad. He unplugs his now, running that stretch. Just safer. I glanced at their rig parked outside, visible through the diner window. A new model, almost identical to mine. "And watch your mirrors close," I added, my voice dropping further. "Especially if you see lights that look just like yours gaining on you. Tricks of the light out there are something else. Best to just focus on the road ahead." I didn't mention Rule 3's waiting period. Didn't mention Rule 2. Didn't mention Amarillo. Just planted seeds of doubt, echoes of the real rules wrapped in plausible explanations. Enough, maybe, to make them cautious. Enough, maybe, to make them turn back if things got too strange. The first kid looked skeptical. The second looked unnerved. I just nodded curtly. "Drive safe," I said, then walked away, leaving them staring after me. Back in Serenity's cab, waiting for my own dispatch, I felt the familiar weight settle over me. I hadn't banished the darkness from Route 666, but maybe I'd hung up a couple more warning signs along the way. You can't kill the legends of the road, maybe, but sometimes, if you're lucky, you survive them, and sometimes that's enough. The road stretched on. I put the truck in gear. Time to drive.